Hey everyone, welcome to KTAL News Now. I'm your host, Anthony Mocklin. I hope you had a great weekend. We're here today to recap that weekend here on KTAL News Now, which streams every day, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m., even on Labor Day, even on a holiday. I hope y'all are having a great time, enjoying yourselves if you're on vacation, and you decided to tune in. I greatly appreciate that. But like I said, we will be recapping the weekend from high school football to college football, as well as local events and things that took place in the community. And as most people know, in Louisiana, this past Friday marked 20 years since Hurricane Katrina completely devastated the New Orleans region specifically, but it also affected Louisiana, specifically the Shreveport-Bossier area. And because it displaced thousands of people who lived in the New Orleans area, and they decided to get away and move up north. And some of them are still here today. And KTAL's Lynn Vance spoke with a Red Cross staffer who remembers the impact that Hurricane Katrina had on the area.
When Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, LSUS was opened by the Red Cross as a shelter, and Southern University was on standby here in Shreveport. Katrina made landfall, and people started hearing from friends and family in New Orleans that it was over.
We expected the shelters to start emptying as soon as landfall happened, which did happen. As soon as landfall occurred, the shelter started to empty.
But then the levees broke in New Orleans, allowing water to come rushing into the streets. At this point, the Red Cross received new instructions.
Don't let people leave the shelters. We need people to stay where they are. These roads are not open. These parishes are not open. We cannot let people back in. There are things happening that are out of our control.
Bigger facilities were opened for shelters like Hirsch Coliseum. Then buses started arriving with people rescued.
We're still soaking wet. They didn't even have a change of clothes with them. And so it was literally doing triage as they got off of the bus, straight from New Orleans.
The Shreveport-Bossier community stepped up.
Our community was amazing. We had hairdressers that would come out and do haircuts and styles for our individuals that were there. We had, again, church groups that would come out and do games with the kids and would do impromptu basketball games.
Some people were in the shelter for 66 days. There was lots of grief during that time, but Michelle is proud of the community and the work the Red Cross did.
The amazing resilience of the human spirit and the great things that people can accomplish when we work together. We did see story after story of people who had lost everything that, they're flying like Phoenix now. They're doing so great and doing such amazing work. And a lot of them stayed in Shreveport-Bossier.
Lynn Vance, NBC6.
And Michelle says that despite all of that, if there's one lesson that people can take away from that even today, is that volunteering can change people's lives and that more people should do so. And if you haven't yet, our Friday edition of KTAL News Now last week, I sat down with digital content manager Marlo Layson to talk about her experience throughout Katrina and the impacts that she is feeling today and just the experience that she went through with her family and just her life and at a very tumultuous period for the city and the community. So be sure to check that out if you haven't. That'll be on our YouTube page at KTAL News, which is also where you can find all of our other KTAL News episodes, which streams every day, Monday through Friday, on KTALnews.com. And our next topic involves a new restaurant in Texarkana, specifically downtown Texarkana, that is bringing family tradition through their food, and our Hunter Trombetta has more details.
Los Tacos very recently opened its doors and started serving authentic Mexican food in downtown Texarkana. But for owner Rafael, it's a dream that began a long time ago.
So as a young kid, we would travel to Mexico City in the summers, and I would stay up there all summer long. And my uncle, Luis from Mexico City, he owns a taqueria, and so I would help him and work with him throughout the week and the weekends, and I really enjoyed it, but most importantly, I enjoyed the food.
That family tradition has endured. Most of the recipes here come from Rafael's mother.
All the tortillas are handmade, all the recipes are original, and we're going to keep it like that.
The restaurant itself is a far cry from the street taco stands that helped inspire it, but Raphael says he wanted a place where people could sit down and enjoy themselves. And the opportunity to open a place like that right across the street from one of the city's biggest attractions was perfect.
We've had people from Europe, New Zealand, Australia, and just all kinds of new faces and individuals, and they're like, man, this is some really good food, And then one of them said, you need to come and open one of these up in England, and I was like, hey, I'd love to. Let me get this one off the ground first, and we'll get it going.
He says that opening a restaurant has been a learning experience, but it's been rewarding to see how the community has embraced his dream of sharing his family's food.
And just the fact that they come in and they're super stoked about the fact that we're here, and they talk about how excited they are about us, and a lot of them, man, I really hope it works. I'm like, man, I hope it works too, because it's working, it's going good so far, and we just want to keep that momentum going.
Hunter Trombetta, NBC6 News.
And keeping it local, specifically at Booker T. Washington High School, they just received a very generous donation to go towards their band and to help fund new equipment and instruments to help them out. And our Jackie Jovic has more on what is being done and where the money actually came from.
Collective 25 partnered with the Guitar Center Foundation to give the school's music program $25,000 worth of new instruments. The school received 6 trombones and 9 trumpets. The new instruments are from top brands, which gives them an edge to create better quality music.
I hope that this donation gives the students the mindset to continue, the mindset that it's okay to dream bigger. I hope they use these instruments to fuel their dreams, perform, and don't let music stop.
The school says they still need community support, and if you'd like to help, just head to our website, ktalnews.com.
And sticking with high school, specifically high school football, Friday Night Lights are Friday night football recap here on KTAL. We had the game of the week this week with Nashville at Magnolia, and the game itself was not particularly close at the end, but there ended up being a brawl that ensued after the game, and our sports team has more on what went down and the aftermath.
For our first game of the week, we visit Adam Kirby and the Magnolia Panthers taking on Nashville and Brad Chester's Scrappers debut. First quarter, one of QB Walker Carter's first passes of the game lands in wide receiver Marshall's hands, finds the end zone. 2-point conversion is good. Panthers up 8-zip. Next drive, Tucker Dixon takes the handoff, pinballs his way in for a touchdown. Failed 2-point conversion. Magnolia still out front 8-6. If we're showing you a kickoff, that means something's gotta happen. Ike Ainsworth to receive. He'll take this one about 90 yards to the house. Magnolia went on to win 30-6. After the game, chaos ensued. Kylie Corman has more.
Debuting a new offense, putting 30 points on the board, Magnolia secured a huge win over Nashville. But the aftermath overshadows the victory.
I'm not saying our kids are angels. They're kids too. But our kids weren't hitting people after the game. I mean, you had the whole game to hit somebody. We win 30-6. And we were in the red zone twice and didn't score. That game should have been 44-6, and they do that to where they come over here and want to do that. You had the whole game to do that. So I don't worry about them and their coaches, but if that's how they want to play it, we don't have to play them anymore. I don't see how that has a place in high school football, where if a kid is walking off the field and he's not even paying attention and he gets punched in the back of the head, and another one of their kids can swing a helmet and hit one of our kids. Knocks him, got a cut across his head, he's bleeding, may have a concussion, but they don't care.
Law enforcement quickly got involved, and consequences are still being decided. Reporting from Magnolia, Arkansas, I'm Kylie Corman.
And sticking with football, specifically college football, they unofficially kicked off the season with week 1 of a huge slate of games. They had week 0 last week that was the official kickoff of college football, but this is the week that everybody else essentially started up and began their seasons. And this weekend also featured 3 top 10 matchups where 4 of the top 8 teams ended up losing their games. And one of those is number 1 Texas, who faced number 3 Ohio State at Ohio State, and they ended up losing 14-7 to Ohio State. It was pretty much a defensive slugfest in terms of what we thought was going to be some pretty high-powered offenses, with most notably quarterback Arch Manning for Texas. But he ended up struggling pretty much throughout the entire day. He just did not have an answer for the defense that Ohio State was giving him. And C.J. Donaldson for Ohio State ended up scoring a 1-yard touchdown midway through the first quarter to kick things off. But there wasn't a lot of scoring after that. Texas had a chance on 4th and goal, and they tried a quarterback sneak or a tush push, whatever you want to call it, and they got stuffed on 4th down and ended up turning the ball over on downs. And Ohio State's defense got them the ball back, and Carnell Tate caught a 40-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Julian Sayin to go up 14-0. And then Texas answered, but it was a little bit too late as they scored as Arch threw a 32-yard touchdown to Parker Livingstone with 3.5 minutes left. They did get the ball back with 2.5 minutes left with a chance to tie it, and they ended up being short again on 4th down. They ended up going 1 for 5 on 4th downs in the game, which probably was the key to why they couldn't continue drives and keep the ball moving. But they do end up falling. Number 1 goes down. But another matchup that we had where another top 8 team fell was when number 8 Alabama fell to unranked Florida State 31-17. And that was pretty much a shock to everybody. Florida State went into the game as a 2-touchdown underdog. If you recall, in June, Florida State's quarterback Tommy Castellanos said that Alabama does not have Nick Saban anymore to save them, and he doesn't see how they can stop him. And they really didn't have an answer for him on the ground. Last year, Florida State was the preseason number 10, and they ended up going 2-10 with a 2-10 record in their season. So they largely disappointed throughout that season. But like I said, in this game, they came in as 2-touchdown underdogs, and this is their first ranked win since the ACC championship game back in 2023 against Louisville. So it's been a while since they had a win like this. The students, of course, stormed the field, which is a college football tradition now. Every time you take down one of the top teams, the whole student section pretty much storms the field and is on the field with the players, even though that the schools keep getting fined for it. I don't think it's going to go away. They're trying to implement ways to better, I guess, welcome this and shepherd this, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But Florida State had an amazing game on offense thanks to offensive coordinator Gus Malzahn, who was the head coach at Auburn for 8 years prior to his job here. And their running game really led the way. They had 230 rushing yards after averaging only 90 rushing yards per game last year in an abysmal 2-10 season, like I said before. But Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer now falls to 6-4 against unranked teams at his time at Alabama, whereas Nick Saban was 124-4 in his time against unranked opponents. Just to put it in perspective, he has already tied Saban in losses to unranked teams in 10 games compared to 128 games, just to show you just how dominant and unstoppable that Alabama dynasty was under Nick Saban. And if you're an LSU fan or you just don't like Alabama, it's great news for you because it might mark the beginning, if not the end, of this Alabama dynasty. They are definitely not what they once were, so it lets the rest of the SEC, and more specifically college football and the playoffs and everything, breathe a little bit. But if you know anything about the playoffs in Alabama, you'll know they'll find a way to vote them in the playoffs just to give them a chance. So we'll see. Hopefully that doesn't happen. This is a very ugly loss for Alabama, so coming in as the number 8 team, and then you lose to unranked Florida State. That just cannot happen, especially in the first game of the season. So we'll see if they make a playoff push or what ends up happening the rest of their season. But the most watched game, if you're in Louisiana, was probably the LSU-Clemson game, where number 9 LSU came into number 4 Clemson on the road and beat them 17-10. Before this game, LSU came into it with 5 straight losses in season openers, and this was a must-win game for them to kind of break that streak and get on the right path, start the season off strong. You don't want to fall into that 0-1 hole to start the season, so good thing they came out with a win, especially for Brian Kelly, the head coach, who needed to get that monkey off his back, essentially, of not being able to win the season opener since Joe Burrow was there. But things took a tumble early on for LSU as they fumbled in the first quarter, and then that ended up leading to a Clemson field goal for them to strike first. And then in the second quarter, Clemson scored another touchdown with Adam Randall pushing it in for a 1-yard score on 4th down. LSU did end up getting a field goal before halftime, and they ended up trailing 10-3 at the half. But right before halftime, they ended up being in field goal range, being in the red zone, about to score, and then it's 4th down, 4th and 2. You run a bubble screen, and then he gets tackled short, but then also fumbles the ball, so you don't even get a chance to pick up the first down or kick a field goal to add points on the board before the half. Just a very horrible way to end the first half, and I thought that would have killed them the rest of the game. They would not have been able to recover from that because Clemson had the momentum, and that was not the case because Clemson would not score the rest of the game. And like I said, Clemson was up 10-3 at the half, and under Dabo Swinney, who's their head coach, they were previously 115-11 all time under him when leading at the half. And unfortunately for him, that number dropped to 12 losses leading at the half, where quarterback Cade Klubnik had completed only half of his passes and threw an interception. That defense was giving him fits pretty much all game. They only sacked him twice, but they were giving him a lot of pressure on all of his dropbacks. And they also bottled up the running game pretty much completely, where they forced Clemson to pass because Clemson only recorded 31 rushing yards on 20 carries, which is just abysmal. Just could not run the ball at all. So, like I said, they were forced to pass and make a lot of errant throws and inaccurate throws because he only completed half of his passes, although he did have over 200 yards passing and that interception. But early in the third quarter, that's when the momentum started to shift because Clemson missed a field goal, and then that in turn led to an LSU touchdown drive capped off by Caden Durham with a 2-yard touchdown run. And then LSU's next drive, they also missed a field goal, but the game at that point was tied up 10-10. It was a brand new ball game. And then at the start of the fourth quarter, that's when LSU really started to turn things up with an 8-yard touchdown from Garrett Nussmeier to Trey'Dez Green to go up 17-10, and that would ultimately be the final score. As with a minute left, the Clemson had the ball. They had to go for it again on 4th down, and they forced their quarterback into an incompletion, and that resulted in a turnover on downs, and then LSU just kneeled it out. But a great win, gritty win on the road for LSU. I expect them to move up a good bit of spots in the AP rankings that will release tomorrow on Tuesday, because we have another game tonight with North Carolina and the debut of Bill Belichick as head coach of North Carolina. So they're waiting for that to release the updated AP Top 25 rankings, but we'll see about that. Another top 10 matchup that was featured this weekend was Notre Dame at Miami. Notre Dame came in number 6 in the country and went on the road against number 10 Miami, but they ended up falling 27-24 at the end. It was a very close game, especially at the end. Miami was up at one point by 2 scores, but then Notre Dame was able to tie it, but ultimately fell short. This was Miami's first win against a top 10 ranked team in 8 years, which is a crazy streak. I did not realize they had gone that long. They had lost the previous 8 games against top 10 teams. And they kicked things off with a 28-yard touchdown from quarterback Carson Beck, who was previously at Georgia but transferred to Miami this offseason, and he found Malachi Toney for that 28-yard score to kick things off. Notre Dame was starting C.J. Carr, who is a true freshman quarterback, is his first career collegiate start, and he found Micah Gilbert for a 7-yard touchdown for his first passing touchdown. And at the end of the half, it was all Miami because they ended the first half with a 75-yard touchdown and a 75-yard touchdown drive, and then they started the second half with another 75-yard touchdown drive. And one of those touchdowns was a 20-yard touchdown pass to C.J. Daniels, which he caught one-handed in that picture that you see there. Yes, he did catch that ball. It was very Odell Beckham-esque. I couldn't even believe he came down with that. Just an incredible athletic effort to make that catch. But Miami also capitalized with a 5-yard touchdown run from Shamar Brown to make it 21-7, and that's when they went up 2 scores. But Notre Dame started to answer back because in the fourth quarter, C.J. Carr found Jordan Faison for a touchdown to cut things to 7. And then he ended up throwing an interception on his ensuing possession, which led to a Miami field goal. But then Notre Dame answered with a field goal of their own before forcing Miami to punt, getting the ball back, and scoring a touchdown to tie things up. Carr actually ran it himself for a 7-yard score to even things up at 24. But Notre Dame, they ended up kicking off the ball to Miami, and then Miami just kept marching down the field, running out that clock. And I'm not really a biggest fan of their play calls, especially in the last 2 minutes, because they had a first down. They kept trying to make Notre Dame burn all their timeouts, and they did so by just running 3 straight runs up the middle, which I get. The first run, they ended up getting 6 yards, but then the next 2, they ended up getting 0 and 1 yard. So it really didn't work out in their favor. I would have at least tried to pick up the first down just so you can kneel it and end it on your own terms, but they let Notre Dame get the ball back with a little over a minute left, and they ended up stopping Notre Dame because they were pretty much in disarray, especially with the quarterback, because they ended up taking an intentional grounding call followed by another sack, and then at that point they ran out of time. They ended up getting a false start call, but at that point the clock hit 0. They had no timeouts left, so the game was over regardless because they couldn't stop the clock even if they wanted to. But yeah, that was the end of that game. And Miami emerges victorious. Like I said, the first top 10 win in 8 years. So it's great for them. They might actually be back, but we'll see. If I had to predict the next AP top 10 poll, which is supposed to release tomorrow on Tuesday, I think that Ohio State will jump up to number 1, which they were previously number 3. Penn State will be number 2 after beating a no-name school. And then Georgia will be 3, LSU 4. I think hopefully they'll jump that high and kind of like swap spots with Clemson, as they showed that they're the real Tigers, and then that Clemson's Death Valley isn't the real one either. But I think Texas will still be a top 5 team. They're a media darling, especially with Arch Manning as quarterback and all the hype surrounding that. And then followed by Miami, Oregon, Clemson, Notre Dame, and then I can see Arizona State sneaking in there. But we'll see. The top 25 poll releases tomorrow, and we'll see after North Carolina's game tonight where everybody stands. But I really think that LSU will vault itself into the top 5 with a huge win. Same with Miami. I could see them sneaking in over Texas at 5, but I think they're definitely top 6 as they just beat number 6 Notre Dame. And they can kind of swap places with them as well. But there's going to be a lot of shakeups in the top 10 because, like I said, 4 of the top 8 teams ended up losing on this weekend. So lots and lots of shakeups in college football, lots of excitement and upsets and everything in just the first weekend of games. So looking forward to a great, great college season. And you can stick with us on KTAL News Now, where we will be recapping everything with the NFL, which starts this week on Thursday night. So be sure to stick with us throughout the week as we'll give recaps on the games, the scores, the stats, everything you need to know on KTAL News Now, which streams every day, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Like I said, if you haven't yet, go to our YouTube page to view all of our previous episodes of KTAL News Now, which streams every day, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. on KTAL News Now. I'm your host, Anthony Mocklin. Have a great rest of your Labor Day weekend. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of Tech Tuesday. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.